I was really excited when Spinnaker got in touch a few weeks ago. I've heard a lot of good things about them online, and I know my YouTube friend Sam is a big fan. His channel called The Casual Watch Reviewer is great, by the way. I'll leave a link to it in the video description. So as you can imagine, I was totally up for them sending me one of their watches to review. And this excitement was only compounded when I found out that Spinnaker was a part of Dartmouth Brands, who also own the Aviate brand, which I was really impressed by in a previous video. So a few days later, I received the parcel, unboxed it, looked at the watch within, and quickly came to the conclusion that this watch just isn't for me. To be honest, at 43mm in diameter, I secretly knew that this wasn't going to fit my thin wrist. However, I hope that maybe I'll be able to recommend it to some of you out there who tune into the channel with larger wrists. Unfortunately, even though I think this watch is good value on a material level, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to recommend this one. I'll begin with the basic size and specs, and then we'll get on to why it's not quite what I'd hoped for. Outside of the width, we have a lug-to-lug of 51mm and a depth of 12.7. When combined, this is a large, chunky watch that's going to suit the thicker wrists out there. I wouldn't say it's a gigantic watch, but you really notice a bit of heft on wrist with a 98-gram weight. That's with this standard strap, though you can expect it to weigh a bit more with the stainless steel bracelet options. The case feels very well crafted, with the 316L steel showcased in a variety of brushed and glossy finishes. I think this watch looks great from a side-on perspective, with the thin shiny areas adorning those sharper edges, creating an attractive curvature. And when you look closely, I think the brushing is impressive too, with the horizontal brushed flanks and vertically brushed lugs looking both neat and tidy. The screw-down crown, pushers and case back make this watch a real diving candidate, with a nice 150 meters of water resistance. The rear has the Spinnaker logo lasered onto the center, which looks cool, and I must say I'm a fan of the retro logo font that they use. Given I cover low-priced wristwatches, this is the first time I've reviewed one that includes the screw-down pushers. Both those and the crown have the right amount of grip on them, which makes for easy usage, and the pushers themselves have a mechanical click that's satisfying to use. You can use these to control the stopwatch functionality present in the Seiko Mecha Quartz movement. Indeed, this Fleuss Chronograph is rocking the same movement that we're very familiar with on this channel. It's featured in plenty of microbrand wristwatches. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know I'm a pretty big fan of these. These hybrids feel like they sit somewhere between a quartz and a true mechanical. This is far from an original choice, but it's a fairly decent one. The module in question here appears to be well aligned, which is also nice to see. Another positive is the sapphire crystal over the dial, which is something else that I definitely look for in watches at this sort of price point. I'm pleased this box is ticked. This will give you awesome scratch resistance at the cost of some impact resistance, which is a worthy trade-off in my books. The current retail price on their website at least is £210 at the time of recording, which can fall to potentially just under about £170 if you use one of these 20% discount codes that are floating about. If I find one of them, I'll make sure I lob it in the description along with a link to the watch. And I think that price should be very fair considering the specifications I mentioned. However, it also adds to the confusion. Why wouldn't I recommend this watch, even though it's supposedly good and well priced? As nice as the watch looks on paper, unfortunately there are some design decisions here that just don't add up to a good final product in my opinion. Firstly, you've got the acrylic bezel, which is ripped straight from the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. This looks attractive by itself and functions reasonably well outside of a bit of backplay. However, it sits around a dial that's having an identity crisis. Some of the alternative colorways that I've seen on YouTube look much better, but this particular color variant that I received, I think it looks ugly. The mash of red and mustard clashes awkwardly across the black dial, leaving me feeling like a Casio and a Blancpain have had a weird looking love child. The sheer number of font styles doesn't help the situation, with there being different numeral types on the bezel, chapter ring, subdials, and date window. There's no consistency, leaving it looking unhinged. The white date window has a silver surround, which is too thick in my opinion, and looks out of place on this dial. When you look at the watch, my eyes are just glued on that. I think it dominates the upper half for no good reason. The date wheel is also set very deep, meaning it's easily shadowed and concealed from any sort of angle. You can even see the large space between the dial and wheel, which just looks a bit sloppy to me. While realistically it's not going to massively impact the function of the watch in any way, it just looks like something that you'd see on a cheap Chinese watch or one of these Indian Franken watches, and that unfortunately isn't good news. When you throw the unusual red and black strap into the equation too, I'm just left thinking that there was no clear design directive with this one. It feels like too many cooks have spoilt the broth. It's a real shame too because there are parts that I do like. I think the dial texture is pretty interesting, and the applied sections that I loved from the Aviate watch make a return here and provide a nice amount of depth and legibility. Outside of the colour, the handset is a fairly decent choice too. Nevertheless, I think the regular Fleuss looks a lot better, as does the blue-grey version of this chronograph, which seems to get away with some of the elements I just criticised. I know I'm harsh, but I think with a few small tweaks, this watch would look a hell of a lot better. If anyone from the brand is watching this, I hope you take this as proper constructive criticism, which is what it is. If unlike me, you like the appearance of this watch, I think you'd be getting a really good quality watch for the money. Even the strap, which is an unusual combination of waterproof leather and silicone, feels very well constructed and has quick release tabs for fast changes. If I were considering this brand though, I'd definitely be looking at some of the other options aside from this one. Purely for aesthetic reasons, I think that there are loads of watches on their site that look a bit better than this one. And if I had the choice, I probably would have gone with one of them.